Hello and welcome to this short guide on how to use the electronic assistance system on the SG7 machine. So you've set up your machine for the first time and you've turned it on and you will be greeted by this screen. However, the first thing you should do is go into the menu here in the top right and tap Preferences and select your preferred unit of length. So if you tap here, you can select between millimeters and inches. So if you tap on the inches box, it will automatically switch everything to inches, and if you switch to millimeters, it will do the same, but for metric measurements. Then if you go back to here, you will have everything presented in the units you prefer, starting with this value here on the left. This registers the position of the workhead. So if you can see, I have the workhead here, and I can move it up and down. And on the screen of the assistance system, you'll see, if it focuses, that it registers the movements up and down. So if I move it up, it increases. If I move it down, it decreases. It can go as far as 0 and will then go into negative values. So if you want to set a 0 for all measurements from this point, say you wanted to measure from this position here, you can then zero the gauge by simply tapping on the number and it will be zeroed around that point, so all of the measurements will now be done relative to that 0 point. Next, on the left here, you will see level sensor. What is the level sensor? The level sensor is this inclinometer here, which sits to the left of the workhead, and it basically registers the inclination of this device to the X and Y axes. So it is currently showing the inclination of the machine head, and it currently is not calibrated. So to check whether it needs calibration, you should take a look at the values stated here, and then turn it 180 degrees. So turn it 180 degrees around its axis. Now you should expect the values to be the same, but because it's not calibrated, it's slightly different. So it was 0.55 for the X, and now it's 0.64. So in order to calibrate the inclinometer, you need to go back into the menu and go into Expert Console, where you'll find the inclinometer calibration button. So this begins the process of calibrating the inclinometer. First thing you should do is set the inclinometer in such a position that you can turn it 180 degrees. So I will prefer to set it so that it's just facing me. And then you click Confirm the initial position. And now all you have to do is just do the exact same thing, turn it 180 degrees. So turn it 180 degrees, you can use a protractor to be exact, and then confirm the opposite position is set on the screen. And your calibration is complete. If you hit Close now, you'll be returned to the work menu, where you'll see a small mark has appeared next to the level sensor readings that indicate that it has been properly calibrated. So now, if I will turn the inclinometer 180 degrees, you will see that the values should stay roughly the same. So I'm not doing this exactly, but if you were to check this exactly, then it will return the same values. So now that the inclinometer is calibrated, you can take it off the machine and then place it on your pilot in the cylinder head, and then use that to align the cylinder head to the machine head so that everything is perpendicular. Now, moving on, you can control all of the regular manual controls of the machine through this menu. So you can release or hold the head by pressing this button. So release and hold. It will release and hold. You can run the spindle as well. So if you click Run Spindle, the spindle will start and it will show you the current RPM. You can also change the RPM by tapping the RPM button and say I wanted 150 RPM. Hit Enter, and it will immediately change to that RPM. You can also use SSV mode, which will vary the speed of the workhead so that it doesn't build up resonances with the cylinder head, and it is also configurable. So if you hold the button down, if you hold the button down, there we go, you will get taken into the SSV configuration menu where you can change the period and the deflection in RPM by just tapping each of these. So that's set to 1.0, I will leave that at that. When you click apply, all of your settings will apply, and the next time you click the SSV button, it will change how it operates. And you can then stop the spindle, and it will stop it. So, as much as this guidance system contains a manual mode, it also contains an automatic mode. But to engage automatic mode, you will need to set several thresholds. So in automatic mode, the workhead can be positioned in each of these states. So parked, float, spindle on, and finish cut. So parked just means that it is that the machine head is completely fixed in place. So that's where you'd leave the machine head between moving the pilot and servicing another valve. Float, which will allow you to move the machine head into position over the pilot. Spindle on, which will lock the machine head and start the spindle, and then finish cut is where you will your finish cut will be. So in order to set these thresholds, a good practice would be to lower the workhead to the depth necessary to treat the valve seat, so that your cutting tool is just touching the valve seat, and then 0, and then set the finish cut threshold to that. So if you go any below that, you'll be able to see how much material you've taken off. Next, spindle on is where you'll want your spindle to turn on. So say I want it there, I will click set there. You can also set these values manually by tapping the number and just entering the value as you wish. And then raise it further so that you find where you would be comfortable having the machine park itself, and set it there. So now you'll see the interface has changed, and it will now indicate where the workhead is located according to the set thresholds. So I'm moving down through finish cut, then the spindle on, float, and parked. It's not currently doing anything as we're still operating in manual mode, and to enter automatic mode, we need to press this button here. So first enter the parked mode to make sure nothing goes wrong, and click enter automatic mode. And you'll see the interface changes to the APMSG automatic mode. And you now have the indicator of the position of the workhead, and you can control the RPM and the SSV from here as well. So say I wanted to lower the RPM back to 110, I can do that from here, and also enable and modify SSV, like that. Now, when I lower the position of the workhead into the float region, the machine head will start floating, and I can move it around and then set it where I want it to be, above the pilot, lower it onto the pilot, and set the spindle on. Now, it'll take us a couple of seconds to center, where you can make sure that everything is set properly, and it will start the spindle at the assigned RPM. You can then tap the SSV button to enable SSV, should you need it. And then you can lower it down, and once you reach this threshold, it will show you finished cut has been reached and stop spindle downward movement, and it'll show you just how much you've moved. So you can see how much you've taken off. Next, if you raise that, you're still in spindle on mode, and as you move from the spindle on mode to the float mode, it will take a couple of seconds before releasing the head, so you make sure you clear your pilot. It will then float the head to let you move it out of the way, and you can then raise it into the parked position, and it will be set stationary. And to exit this mode and back into manual mode, you just tap this button, and you will be back into the original menu.